Louise Bedford here, your host of the Talking Trading podcast. This is How Traders Excel. You're about to hear an interview that I did with Rick Schnabel and Jackie Smith on the Business Matters segment of a 97.5 radio show, and I know you're going to love it. We cover the importance of developing an objective mindset, not just for traders, but also for business owners, because your wealth depends on it. Often as traders, we look to maintain that objectivity so that we don't swing on that pendulum between utopia and depression. So having that objectivity can actually mean that we're making the best possible decisions. That is also true if you're a business owner. I know you're going to love the show. I'm going to hand it over to Rick and Jackie and we can kick off.
You're listening to Business Matters with Jackie Smith and Rick Schnabel on 97.5 Sapphire FM. Today, we are so lucky to have Louise Bedford with us. Louise is a best-selling author of 5 books on the stock market. She is a behavioural finance expert with degrees in psychology and business. She's been running the 6-month Repeat for Free trading game mentor program since the year 2000, and she's also the founder of Talking Trading, a free weekly trading podcast. Known as the corporate executive who lost the use of her arms and achieved financial freedom by trading with a pen in her mouth, she will inspire you to achieve your trading best. When she's not hanging out with her traders, she is spending time with her 2 children and husband, lifting weights at the gym and enjoying yoga. Welcome to Business Matters, Louise.
Thanks so much, Jackie.
Welcome, Louise. So let's start by asking you, can you tell us a little bit about what you do in your business?
Sure. So I run the Trading Game Mentor Program, and the Trading Game is designed so that we can put money into your pocket and make it stick through trading the share market. So a lot of people who come to us are just looking for a way out. They want the ability to say no to their boss or no to some unreasonable demand, and that's where trading can really help. So I've been a trader since 1990, and being able to help other people achieve that level of financial freedom has just brought so much joy to my life. I just adore catching up with my traders from around the world and making sure that they are totally on track with their trading plan, applying discipline and making sure that they are supported in their journey, Rick.
Awesome. And you're certainly quite an expert in that space. And I've had the great fortune to meet many people that you've trained over the years. And you do such a superb job of helping them get their mindset right and their strategies. And awesome.
That's amazing, Louise. I'm fascinated. But first, I'm very interested to know about the occasion when you lost the use of your arm.
Yes, well, this is going back many years. I was working in the corporate world, and honestly, who ever thinks something like this is going to happen? Because I certainly didn't. I was in my mid-20s and all of a sudden I had a little twinge in a finger, and before I knew it, in 2 weeks, it had spread totally up and down both arms, and no matter what I tried to do, I could not will my arms to move. It was almost like there was a connection that was broken between my brain and my arms, which later on, that is what they found out neurologically. Basically, your brain can stop your body from doing certain things. So in this situation, I had a condition that stopped my brain from moving my arms, and it was also very, very painful. So going from being a national manager where I had staff in Australia and Canada, and having that level of ego which goes along with being a young manager, I mean, it was obscene. My head was huge. So I had to go from that to having a carer look after me, having to quit my job and feeling quite lost. So thank goodness I had trading, because without trading, I would have been in a huge pain of identity bother. There's no doubt. And that ability to trade the markets alongside my job really fulfilled a part of me that I didn't even know I would need in the future. So really, sometimes we have to dig that well before we're thirsty, and thank goodness I did. Years later, I'm still a trader. I never had to go back to my job. I help people from everywhere trade just as I have learned to trade as well, Jackie.
Incredible story, and it's almost like it created space for you to really find what your purpose was. Otherwise, perhaps you would have just been going from one success to another in your, in your young managerial roles, but perhaps missed that opportunity there.
Yes, and there is a philosopher, Ovid, that quote, "One day this pain will be useful to you," kept on ringing through my mind, and I found that is the case. I've had that pain really create space, not just for me, but also for the people that I train. I've started training people in trading because I shared a disability with so many people down at the hydrotherapy pool, and I taught them how to trade so they were able to get off the pension that they were often entangled with. Once you're in that process, in that system, it's very difficult to break free. So having money acts as a giant anesthetic in your life. It's amazing how much it can ease the burden of having a situation that is difficult to handle. So all these years later, I've been able to regain the use of my arms. Yes, it does recur every now and again, but the physiotherapy visits and the ability to use my mind to be able to fix my issue is such a relief. And I wouldn't be able to do that if I was working full time.
So as your quote from Ovid, what you did is you created an incredible buffer, a space where you were able to really master the game of trading. So I'm guessing that what you were doing through that period was you had a lot of time to study, to go deep, to develop, to find mentors and people who could really help you to know exactly how to trade efficiently. Was that the case?
Look, I would love to say it was just a very straight journey from where I was to where I am now, but Rick, it just was not. So how it went is I remember finding my initial broker, because in those days we used human brokers, and I phoned up somebody who I thought had the best name in the world, Chris. So I'm married to a Chris, my business partner is a Chris. I've had 9 boyfriends and 7 of them have been by the name of Chris. So when I saw this broker's name down the back of a bank, Chris, I went, great, I'm going to phone this Chris because I strike out very nicely with this Chris's. It's all good. So I rang this Chris and I said, look, I don't know that much about trading, but you're a broker. So why don't we use like this as being an example of serendipity, because I am definite that we need to spot opportunities and we need to keep our eyes open. So often as adults, we think we're finished. We think the story's done. Whereas in actual fact, until you open your mind up, the story is not over at all. So this Chris, this broker, he said to me, look, I don't have much experience. I haven't really done a lot of this. And I said, well, that's okay. You know, we can learn together. Let's use my money and we'll learn together. Now, he thought that was a good offer. I actually at the time thought it was a good offer. Goodness, what was I thinking? Whereas now, what I educate people to do is to read books, to listen to podcasts, to develop their wealth mindset before they plunge into the market. So I jumped in too early, undercapitalized. I did lose a lot of money in the beginning, and really, I think the ability to learn from one's own errors is sacrosanct. So being able to learn from those mistakes and realize that if I kept on going in that path, I would be running out of money and I wouldn't be a trader. So the mistakes I've made are very long, plentiful, and quite revolting. But from that, being able to use those mistakes and to develop myself has been a big advantage.
It's that old adage that the mistakes are literally the steps to success anyway. And particularly in the space of training, and that's what you do so well. You teach a lot of people how they can actually use the money that they make in their business and be able to leverage that money to be able to make more money by going and mastering the trading game. So what was your mission starting forward?
When I was 19, I went to a big presentation by a group that's no longer in business, ironically. And I wrote my mission statement down then. And the major part that I've retained is to inspire others by leading by example, and to help people discover their true energy. Now, by true energy, what I meant at that stage, remember I was 19, so it was all a little bit flowery, but the thing that makes them tick. Now, I've found with business owners that business owners often have everything it takes to be a successful trader. Not only are they self-sufficient, they know that they call the shots and that they are responsible for their own success. So a lot of times our past background can actually help us in the markets. And I've definitely found that with people who've got a strong background with property. If they're property investors, they're already used to thinking in that way, but also business owners do incredibly well in the markets. So whether we're trading the Australian market or perhaps the US market, there's ways to make money, whether the market is trending up, down, or sideways. So business owners can spot this with remarkable strength and clarity because they're used to running their business through different market cycles themselves. So those similarities, it's like one big Venn diagram, that can actually really help them as traders. And I love watching that occur for people.
Makes a huge amount of sense.
And with what you're doing as well, I mean, Rick, your background in training is just exceptional. So being able to see your people excel has just been such a joy in my life as well. Even though we're in completely different fields, I think some of those commonalities, those strengths can translate through regardless of the vehicle that we're using to create wealth.
Yeah, mindset does play a massive, massive game, doesn't it?
Sure does.
Louise, it's quite remarkable that you thought and you acted on having a mission statement at the age of 19. That's incredible, and the foresight and the fact that you've been able to remain true to that for all these years is quite incredible. So that's a real credit to you. I'd love to know about a day in your life now and how that rolls for you as a trader. And we're all sort of fascinated to hear. So many in business are used to getting up, going into the business, and perhaps being a little bit of a slave to our businesses, which is an element of business ownership that not many would love. But please tell us about a day in your life.
Sure. So I think you're right, Jackie. That idea where you are tied to the business is so unfortunate because that's often where burnout occurs. I'm hearing so much discussion about burnout at the moment, and it is a real problem. And I think the tipping point with burnout is cynicism. Once you start to become cynical, that hair trigger anger, that any minute now I'm going to snap somebody out feeling, that actually can have a huge impact, not only on your business, but also emotionally on those you love. So I think it's up to every individual to look to see their areas of pressure and to try and mitigate that pressure so that it doesn't convert into stress. So a day in my life now. So I'm a medium-term trader. So I'm not trading every single day. So let's take Sunday because I consider that the start of my week. I do my scan through the markets to see what opportunities are going to present themselves for the coming week. I isolate those opportunities. So whether it be some shares, maybe there's some commodities in there, maybe there's some index trading positions that I'd like to take. All of that's done in about an hour. So I don't spend too long on it. I find decision fatigue can set in, and that does not make for the purest of decisions. It just means you get tired and you get wonky in terms of your clarity. So if I can just put on my timer before I start, finish by the time that hour's up so that I'm all set up for the week. That tends to be the best. So I'll put on my positions on a Monday and I'll include automatic stops. So these little trades that I'm putting on, they can run themselves because they can exit at a predefined level. And that is really important for risk management. Making sure you know before you get into a position, your entry, where you're going to get out, your exit, and how much money to place into each position, which is your position sizing. That is the core of following a good trading plan: entry, exit, and position sizing. So the rest of my week, I literally go to the gym a lot because I love that. I look after my 2 children. I make sure that I include time for myself so that I don't get frayed around the edges, because I think that is, of course, something that is the first thing people miss. We have to look after ourselves first before we look after others. And in general terms, I'm trying not to look at the markets too much. It doesn't help with my decision, and it doesn't actually add any extra money into my equity. So having traded since 1990, I've found for me that short-term mindset that I have to make money now, that type of fleeing need idea, money flees need. It doesn't stick with you if you are constantly pursuing it. So there is a balance there, and the balance for me is trading over the medium term and making sure I'm following a trading plan very loyally and not deviating from that which I wrote in the past. So discipline really counts with this.
I want to ask you a question, because you often come out with such incredible gold and, in little statements, and our listeners could have missed this. I want you to elaborate a little bit on this idea of money flees need.
Yes, it's unfortunate because when we are in lack as opposed to abundance, we see the world differently. There have actually been studies on this. One of the studies occurred after the Second World War. They looked to see what happens when people are deprived of food, and they got this wonderful cohort of young men who decided to be calorie restricted, and then they found out what happened to their mindset. Now, the first week it was fine. They're all joking, laughing. They're all living together in this little town. It's great. They can drink as much coffee as they like, though, so that's a plus. But then after the second week, after that honeymoon period had worn off, all they wanted to do was to talk about food. They wanted to watch a movie about food. They wanted to talk about being a chef, what food they were going to prepare when that experiment had finished. Everything revolved around food. Anything that interrupted with that discussion about food, they considered the enemy, and they got angry. So they were allowed to walk through the town. They could look in the bakery window. They could look in the restaurant windows, but they weren't allowed to eat. Otherwise, they'd be disqualified from the study. Now, let's compare that to what happens when we have rising interest rates. We have the property market, which is rather tumultuous at the moment. The share market has been very volatile. What happens to our mindset? All of a sudden, we fixate on the wrong thing. We fixate on the thing that we need because we can't see that big picture. We are in this mind tunnel, this mood tunnel, this terrible pendulum swing between catastrophizing and utopia. We need to, as traders, have that middle ground, that very objective, balanced view, not to catastrophize, not to consider the world utopian, but to make sure that we are seeing the world objectively. And if we can do that, that objective mindset can lead us to money. That need, that lack in our life, often we move towards our most dominant thought. We gravitate towards more of that which we wish we didn't have. So if you're only seeing lack and you're only seeing, I can't do this, it's too hard, the world is against me, politically, they want to keep me down. If that's what you're saying to yourself and to others, you will get more of it. We need to train ourselves to have that objective mindset.
Very, very good point. It reminds me of that old story of the hot dog vendor in New York, that the oncoming recession is on its way, and his very clever son says to his father, Dad, there's a recession coming. You've got to prepare for it. And Dad says, what should I do? And he says, halve your orders, reduce your risk, cut your stock down. And so his father does. And then he says, thank you, son. You rescued me. You saved me. So how did you go, Dad? Well, we took half the amount that we normally do. We sold out, but we only took half the amount.
And the other aspect to that story, Rick, is that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So now that hot dog vendor is saying, see, the world is going into recession.
Yes.
And that lack of abundance mentality, that can actually really stymie a business. Not only can it hurt a trader, because really traders, often the markets act as a mirror. We see reflected ourselves in our trading results, which is just such an awful way to consider the world, isn't it? You don't always want to get the results that you deserve, but my goodness, unless you work on yourself, you will. That hot dog vendor might have actually created that loop that generations don't break out of. Often our ideas are passed on by the people who raised us. That intergenerational mind script becomes a money script that guides our behavior. And unless we purposefully question that, we can be stuck with that, and we can teach that to the next generation.
Well, I can remember Dr. Morris Massey spoke about a time period called the imprint period from 0 to 7, where our brain's consciousness isn't really developed at that point. So in essence, what happens is we just become a sponge to all of the beliefs and ideas that are around us. So we become pretty much like our parents.
And the way that we need to question that as business owners is we have to ask ourselves a few questions. Firstly, is whatever idea that you're questioning, is it true? So that is the first awareness question I'd suggest people ask. Secondly, is it helpful? And if it isn't helpful, but it is true, then you have a choice. I tend to reject those helpful aspects of our life that actually are true. If they're not helpful, I will actually reject that, and I'll only use the helpful ones. And then the third question to ask is this view of the future the most likely way it will come about? So is it true? Is it helpful? And is it likely? So those three questions, I think, can really help business owners break out of this funk. We're seeing a lot of businesses close down. There are a load of for lease signs up. There are business owners saying to each other in industries, this is such a hard industry to be in at the moment. That self-fulfilling prophecy hasn't even been questioned by the majority. So I think that is where, as business owners, we can actually turn things around. And it is our duty. We are the producers, as Ayn Rand said in the book. We are the producers. We're the ones that get the flack from the others because we are striving ahead, but we're also the ones leading the way. So we have to stay strong. And that's why I love shows like this, because it does give encouragement to the producers out there.
Absolute gold. Absolute gold. Thank you so much, Louise. I have a question for you in the context of challenges. We've spoken about mindset. We've spoken about the opportunity of business people being able to leverage their value, leverage their income by trading, investing, and growing their wealth using that as a vehicle. But what have been some of the challenges that you've had in your business, and how have you overcome them?
So I've got the two key businesses. One is Talking Trading, which is my podcast, and then the other is Trading Game, which is where I do the training for the traders. And look, there've been many difficulties with both. I would love it if you could just sit down and slide uphill, but it doesn't work that way. The key one, and anybody who's in the online environment at the moment will probably have an inkling that this is happening for them. The key one over the last couple of years has been email deliverability. So we have done everything that we can to make sure that the emails we send are desired by the people who receive them. But there are rule changes, and there's even a big one coming up in February 2024 that is going to make a huge difference to email deliverability. So that's the current thing on my mind in terms of challenges. But other challenges over the years have been the compliance environment has changed for us. So we have an AFSL, an Australian Financial Services license. That is really hard to get and extremely hard to maintain. So that level of compliance is huge. But the other one that I think appeals to every business owner out there is the level of admin. There is so much red tape that business to business friction is only getting more and more. The level of effort that we have to go to in order just to be able to get a bank loan is crazy now, isn't it? Just crazy. So that is where I'm seeing a lot of burnout with my business owners who I'm training in the markets. They're looking for an escape. They want a way out. This level of admin is drowning them. They got involved in business because they had a belief and a heart-driven desire to help in a particular area. And now those same people are buried under paperwork. I don't know if you've found that, Jackie. Have you watched your business people struggle with the level of admin required?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a shame. There's so much work to be done behind the scenes that it does take you away from doing what you do best.
Absolutely.
Moving on to other aspects of business, which can sometimes be tricky, and there's a lot of uncertainty about how to effectively do so. How do you advertise your business?
Oh, look, I know people want me to say I've got really great systems for this, but I don't. I don't advertise. I go through word of mouth. It is such a referral oriented situation that I've even had, because I've been running my mentor program to teach people how to trade every instrument over every time frame, but where it's their own trading plan. I've been running that since the year 2000. I've actually had the first group of grandparent, parent, and child, the child's 21, right, go through the mentor program. So I've had 3 generations. And of course, that was all referrals. So we go a lot on referrals. We know all of our people individually. We know their hopes. We know the areas of weaknesses as well, so that we can shine a light into those blind spots that those people may not realize they're experiencing. And as a result, because of the results they've derived and because of the care that I've offered and my business partner Chris Tate has offered, we get people from word of mouth. So we've definitely got our websites up and running. I love my podcast, Talking Trading, where I interview people like Rick Schnabel on my show, which is absolutely, Rick, you're a superstar on my show. Our people love you. And of course, famous traders from around the world as well. So people get attracted to that because the heavy voice of self-interest screams in their ear, and they realize that, hey, I want a bit of this action too, and they do what they can to educate themselves. And if I can help with that education, that is such a pride for me. I love that.
Louise, you've spoken a lot about trading, and I'm guessing there's a lot of our listeners right now who are thinking, what does this amazing lady do? So can you share with our listeners some of your products? What are some of your products, programs, just to give listeners a bit of an idea of some way forwards for them?
Sure. Well, look, the key one I would suggest that everybody gets involved with is getting a written trading plan. And I give away my trading plan template on my website, tradinggame.com.au. So that template will guide you through all of the major areas you have to cover as a trader or as an investor in order to excel in the markets. Now, that is the key starting point. But also, I'm a best-selling author, so I've got like books. You can definitely educate yourself by reading Trading Secrets, Charting Secrets. They're the two I'd start with. I've got another 3 there as well that you can work your way through. And I've got a series of different home study courses, but really that key starting point is one that I always bring people back to, no matter their level of education, no matter where they are in their own business. If they want to trade and invest, they need the equivalent of a business plan to do so and to do it well. So that business plan in my world is a trading plan, and that trading plan is available through tradinggame.com.au.
Fantastic. So tradinggame.com.au, we'll make sure that we put some links on our webpage too, so people can access that directly. Awesome.
Louise, a lot of our listeners will be quite busy within their own businesses. How much time does someone need to be able to jump into a program like yours?
Well, look, let's separate out the education aspect compared to the actual trading aspect. I mean, as with everything of value, you do need to commit time, but often that time spent on your own education, you've probably got other things that are equivalent that you've done in the past. You just need to bring those out. So the specific skills that traders need, things that I do on a day-to-day basis, it's learning how to read a chart. So a chart shows the share price action over time. Now, I love looking at charts. I've actually developed for myself and for my traders an archetype, which is the perfect chart. I mean, if you were looking for a partner in the marriage game, this is like Mr. Right. I've got like this template of this perfect share chart that not only do I have on my wall just over there, but I also have in my mind, and I compare every other chart to it. And if it isn't perfection, it doesn't deserve my money. So a lot of the education aspect is learning how to read charts and also risk management. So how much money do you put into a position so that you are protecting yourself, but giving yourself a good chance to be able to grow your equity. So that education part, it's really hard to say how long that will take. I mean, for most people, after 6 to 12 months, they're starting to feel more comfortable with this. So this is something that once you've got it, it's a lifetime skill. Your skills can only ever improve. I want to do this from the retirement village. I think this is such an easy way to be able to view the world in terms of price and volume action. So if it's going up, I buy it. If it's going down, I sell it, and I keep my position sizes small. So they're the tenets behind the education part. The actual trading part, I have found, and definitely other studies have found, that if you are trading a lot, if you're a short-term trader, you're not as likely to make as much money as a medium-term trader. So for me, I spend an hour on a Sunday, that's mandatory, and maybe 20 minutes during the week. I don't spend a long time in front of my screen. I know what I'm looking for, and I execute my plan. So that, I think, is something to consider. It's not something that you need to take a very long time doing. As a trader, the longer you spend doing it, the less likely you're going to actually be led to riches anyway. So it is something that dovetails beautifully into a business owner's life.
Wow. It's a new world for me, and I'm quite fascinated by it. But thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. I'd love you to share with us what the life of a successful trader looks like.
Well, I guess it depends on what they want. So there's quite a few stories that are springing to mind. One of my best traders, she's a single mum. She was left when she was 8 months pregnant by her husband. And up until then, she hadn't really taken trading very seriously. But then she went, "Oh, well, stuff you," to the husband. So she took the money from the settlement and she decided she wanted to be a full-time stay-at-home mum so that she could spend time with her beautiful little child who was yet to be born. So she miraculously had that shift. You know, I think sometimes we need to reach a snap point, a point in our lives where we just say, no more, I'm not going to take this anymore. I'm going to do this for myself. Now that, for this lady, that was her snap point. I've seen other people reach a snap point when they get retrenched, when they have a significant parent die, a significant other die, because they realize time is of the essence and they have to prioritize the things that are going to bring joy to their life. So I don't know what your snap point will be. I really hope that when you do reach a snap point that you have an idea about the direction you want to travel in, because it's much easier to steer a moving vehicle than it is to start from a parked vehicle situation. So if you can already dig that well before you're thirsty, if you can already have some level of movement forward where you're educating yourself about the markets, where you have an idea that this is what you want to do, you want to move forward with this particular area, then if things go wrong in your life, you will have that as a backstop, just the way I did.
Thank you.
I'm so enjoying the psychological elements of which you're sharing and the philosophical elements that you're sharing today on our program. I think it blends so well into so many different areas. And as you said earlier, that a business mindset is really quite already adept to be able to move into the trading space. And I think, you know, that's some incredible value that our listeners will be getting right now, which is awesome. So in the context of various students that you've had who have come through your programs that really do want to trade highly successfully, what are some of the things that are quite typical for traders and how do you help them to get beyond those challenges?
The big challenge is their own mindset. That is the big challenge. And I do think also that involves self-worth, because so often we shortchange what we actually think we are worth. There's actually a study with tarantulas, and I often think of this study because it shows so many aspects of human nature. They took a group of arachnophobes, people who hate spiders. I mean, who doesn't hate spiders? But we won't go there. They took a group of arachnophobes and they put a tarantula on a table in front of them. And that tarantula clearly is the ugliest of all spiders. I mean, goodness me, those hairy little legs. Ah, gosh. So how could you not feel that physiological rising up within you to show fear? Now, what they found, because they measured these people's physiology, they found that the people with the highest levels of self-worth judged the spider as further away. So if you can work on your self-worth, you will perceive threats differently. You will perceive threats as being less of a threat. And that, I think, is the key, not only for business owners, but also for traders. We have to strive to be objective. We have to evaluate the truth of the matter. We have to trade what we see on the chart, not what we wish we could see, not what we hope for the future, not because we have a bill that needs to get paid. We have to trade reality. And that, working on self-worth, working on that psychological fitness where we are flexible with our mindset, we can be resilient and handle things when they go wrong. That is probably one of the key forgotten aspects of effective trading. The best traders in the world are the most psychologically fit.
Beautiful answer. Beautiful answer. So, you know, again, it's about getting your mindset right, because you want to be able to, and I love what you said earlier. You said, is it true? Is it helpful? What was the third thing?
And is it likely?
And is it likely? And so being able to assess a market with the right mindset, with a healthy mindset, with an open mindset, with an observant mindset, is going to be hugely, hugely helpful. And it's the same mindset you need for a successful business.
Which is why I think it's such a value for business people to listen to shows like this, Rick, because without that constant input of positive vibe into your mind, it can be so easy to get caught in your own echo chamber where you're believing your own negative thoughts, and we swirl around, and unless somebody combats and challenges those boundaries that we've made for ourselves, honestly, I think that this is a much harder path. We do need people to stimulate us to work out, okay, this is our next step. How do we get there? They have done it, and so can I. So that level of inspiration, I think, is very much underplayed and undervalued by business people. And I can tell you, the best traders are relying on inspiration from the outside. They're not just looking within, but they're also looking to see from a comparison point of view, who's ahead of me that I can emulate. And unfortunately, the comparison can go both ways, can't it? Who is not achieving so that I can avoid the things that they are doing? That is where I think FOMO can be great, that fear of missing out. If we have a comparison upward and downward, but we're aware of what those purposes are behind those sources of comparison, that actually can really help a business owner and a trader excel.
That's fantastic. There's something also that I'm really getting from here. Every now and then you will hear very limited thinkers who will essentially talk about trading, likening it to gambling. And what I love about what you're sharing today is that, the people just fly on the wall. It's flip of a coin. And what you're talking about, your systems, your strategies, are so much deeper than just flipping a coin, of course. And you've got rules, you've got charts, you've got strategies, you've got blueprints, you've got goals, and everything is so worked out and very fixed, and works well with an open mindset.
Yeah, that's right, because we are using probability here. We cannot predict the future. We don't know whether a particular position that we're in is going to go to the moon or dump down. So we protect ourselves from downside risk, and we plan for upside. We make sure that when we are planning for upside, we do think in terms of how far can it go, what would happen in this situation, but we also think in terms of if things drop, how will I react to that? So having that duality of reality, where if things were going really, really well, what do we do? If things are going very, very poorly, what do we do? That can also be applied to business. I don't know if you've heard of the pre-mortem technique. Have you heard of that technique, Rick?
No, I haven't.
This one's a winner. And I did this before I got involved with Talking Trading, our podcast. So our podcast is really old for podcasts. Our podcast is nearly 10 years old. So goodness me, that was even before the word podcast was around. We originally called it webcast. That's how old it is. So with a pre-mortem, what we did is I got together with my business partner and a couple of associates who were going to be involved in Talking Trading. And we said, let's imagine that it's a year on from now and the podcast has failed. It is just annihilated. Our friendship is just blown up. We've lost so much money. Devastation. So now let's work backward. Why did it fail? And we all wrote our ideas down. We swapped our bits of paper. We worked out that there were specific things that could have led to the failure. And we spent our time then fixing those potential problems. That pre-mortem technique of looking a year in advance, thinking everything's just totally blown up, and then working backward to work out why is ingenious. I use this all the time. Any big project I have, I imagine that it has blown up in a year and then work backward to scaffold my way into fixing those problems before they even begin.
Wow, I love that. That's fixing your future problems in the present.
Yes, that's it. I think we are optimists as business owners. We are too optimistic sometimes. We, of course, get into business because we think it's going to solve the world's problems. Of course, our families are going to be so happy. Of course, we're going to have self growth. But what if we don't? Now, that is the gap. So, that ability to be able to see reality is something that I think is the theme for what we're talking about. Looking to see what can we do to fix issues before they begin, and if things go really, really well, how will we react? It's a real plus to consider that in advance of any project.
That is absolutely fantastic. I love what you're sharing today. And listeners, if you're listening, you probably should be taking notes. This is absolute brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, Louise, how can people get in touch with you?
Definitely come to visit me at my podcast, talkingtrading.com.au. You can subscribe there so that I can send you emails, but also that all important trading plan template can be yours by coming to Trading Game. So it's like a big game, isn't it? So tradinggame.com.au. So come and visit me, tradinggame.com.au, download your free trading plan template, and then we'll be able to stay in touch.
That is absolutely fantastic. Now, finally, Louise, we do have some quick questions for you. So these final questions are our who, what, why type questions. These are our business builder type questions. Jackie, would you like to begin with the very first question?
Thank you, Rick. I'd love to. Louise, who is the first person that you seek help or advice from with your business?
That's my ex-boss, the guy that actually employed me in my corporate role all those years ago. If I've got a big problem from a business perspective, I go to him first. So Treve Jenkin, you are a champion in my life, and you know I adore you.
Awesome. Now, Louise, I'm interested in your answer to this question. What is the best attitude for business growth?
Objectivity.
Love it.
Thank you. Louise, where should you focus to grow your business?
On the areas that other people are missing. I often find that if something is trending, then usually there's a secondary aspect to it. So if oil prices are going up in just a short amount of time, the airlines will often go up because they are driven on oil prices. So I do think looking for that secondary ability other than that primary trend is a good place to cast your attention.
Thank you.
And why do you continue doing what you're doing? Why do you continue your business?
Rick, this is the big one, isn't it? The mission that I have can never really finish. So I think that drives me. And it has since I was 19 and when I first wrote that mission statement, to inspire others by living by example. That is the core of what I'm looking to do. While people are wanting to achieve in the markets, they're looking to create more money because they've got good reasons for themselves. I feel like I'm in a position to show them how to do that. So I do find that drives me when I'm getting sick of the admin, sick of the compliance, sick of everything I have to do to maintain my financial services license. The light for me is being of service to other people who have got something in them that they really want to achieve.
Awesome. And Jackie, I'm going to get you to ask that question because I stole it from you earlier. So can you ask the final how question?
I do think it's worth asking again, just in case our listeners missed it. Louise, you've just provided so much value today, and I know that I've been completely inspired and I will be jumping on your website. But my question to you is, how can people connect with you once again?
Come and visit me at tradinggame.com.au. and download that free trading plan template.
Well, Louise Bedford, thank you so much for joining us on Business Matters. It's been inspiring, refreshing, and just so interesting. So thank you so much for your time.
I've loved it so much. You two are doing an amazing job. Well done for inspiring so many business owners from around Australia to be the best business owner they can be.
Thank you, Con. Thank you. we're going in duo to thank you. Louise, I must say that you have been one of the most refreshing guiding lights on our program. I think what you shared today was a beautiful blend between business, mindset, and also the opportunity for creating freedom in your life by mastering the trading game. And I think, all our listeners, please jump onto Louise's website and start the journey, because it is a journey to freedom. So thank you so much for joining us on the program today, Louise.
Thanks so much, Rick and Jackie.